Hi, I'm Dr. Chad Larson. Thanks for joining me in another episode of Keep It Real. Today I read an article in a journal that reminded me of a patient that I had yesterday. And the patient has heart failure. And heart failure basically is a condition where the heart, the left ventricle particularly, does not have the energy, does not have the capacity to push the blood out to where it needs to go, into all the different blood vessels that go to things like your brain and your arms and your legs and all your organ systems. So the left ventricle is a lot bigger than the right ventricle, because the right ventricle just has to push unoxygenated blood through the respiratory system for that blood to get oxygenated, and then it comes back to the heart. And then the left ventricle, now that it has oxygenated blood, pushes that all out to the rest of the body, because oxygenation is really one of the key aspects of the circulatory system. Delivers oxygen to all the cells so that the cells can make energy. And so a person who has heart failure oftentimes suffers from really pretty extreme fatigue and lots of other symptoms that just go with poor circulation, but weakness and just even brain issues, and usually it kind of cascades from there, shortness of breath, that kind of thing. But it reminded this study reminded me of this patient, because oftentimes from a natural medicine standpoint, we want to improve the energetics of the heart function. We want to improve the energy production and the metabolism of the energy in the heart cells. And one of the ways that we do that is we emphasize a nutrient called L-Carnitine, and some other nutrients too, like oftentimes we recommend ribose. Ribose is a certain type of sugar that really helps to kind of fuel these cells. Oftentimes we use something like magnesium malate, which helps with kind of the muscular contraction and function of the heart. And then oftentimes some anti-inflammatory support, like essential fatty acids. In fact, last episode we talked a lot about the effect of EPA, DHA, omega-3 polyunsaturated fatty acids on the function of the circulatory system. So you can check that one out. But L-Carnitine is something that I was recommending for this patient, because we want to improve the energetics of the cell. And then I came across the study today, and it's pretty interesting, and evaluated the effect of L-Carnitine on a couple different things. One is that they evaluated L-Carnitine's function on the muscles. And we know that muscles require lots of energy because they're working all the time, so they kind of require pretty consistent fuel. And what L-Carnitine does is it's one of the transporters to move fat across the cell membrane so that it can get to the mitochondria and produce ATP, or energy for the cell. So L-Carnitine is one of these really important kind of transporter nutrients that if you don't have enough of this transporter nutrient, then the fat is not able to get into the cell to produce energy. And particularly as we get older, our ability to use glucose for energy goes down. We get into kind of an insulin resistant kind of problem, and that can happen everywhere from the liver to the brain and everything in between. But certainly for the heart cells, and also for our skeletal muscles, the muscles that help us move around, those are skeletal muscles. So it helps with both heart muscles and skeletal muscles, and it's because of this function, how L-Carnitine is an important transporter to bring the fats across the cells to make the cells work better. And they also evaluated the function of this improved energetics on people who exercise. So we know that when you exercise, there's a greater demand for energy, and if we could increase L-Carnitine, then it'll help to increase the number of these transporters to bring the fat across the cell membrane to be used as fuel. So L-Carnitine is just one of these nutrients that fortunately are very abundant in foods, particularly proteins. But here's the thing, is a lot of people, as I take diet diaries on people, oftentimes protein is falling a little bit short. And it varies, the need for protein varies from person to person, but particularly in people who are more athletic, or they have certain health goals of maintaining muscle mass and that kind of thing, they generally need more protein if they're exercising. And so these recent studies show that if you can increase carnitine either through your diet or through supplementation, then that will help to improve your muscle building, your muscle function, not only your skeletal muscles, but also your super important number one muscle, the heart muscle. So a little bit of food for thought there. Just a nutrient that if you haven't heard about, just wanted to educate you a little bit about that and tell you about what the latest research says. Oh, one more thing that they mentioned in the study is there's a condition that is common in our elderly population, and it's called sarcopenia. Sarcopenia, you've heard of osteopenia, that means bone deficiency. Sarcopenia means muscle deficiency. So one of the problems with that plague the elderly population is a decrease of muscle tissue. And they showed in this study that by increasing intake of L-Carnitine, either with supplements or with diet, that could improve, let's say, decrease the chance of sarcopenia. And sarcopenia is a independent risk factor for lots of chronic issues, including things like osteoporosis and bone fractures, because you need the muscles strong enough to be pulling on the bones, and that what helps the bones to kind of stay strong. And if the muscle is very weak and depleted, then that could lead to sarcopenia, which is a really important risk factor for other issues in this population. So that's the latest research. I'll keep reading the studies and bring you the information. Until then, keep it real.